I have so many unread books that have been sitting on my to be read shelf for so long, and it's embarrassing. So when I saw this challenge from Megan and Sue over at the Spine Breakers, I thought that this was perfect for me and I needed to jump on and join right away, and I did. And I've been doing really well with this challenge, but I totally forgot that I haven't shared this challenge with you yet, and you know, given you my TBR and my progress and whatnot. So this is the if you got it, read it challenge. The first challenge is read a book you've had on your TBR in the past, or had on a TBR in the past. And for this one, I'm gonna put The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, because this has been on so many different TBRs countless times, and I've picked it up, I put it down, I picked it up again, put it down, picked it up, blah blah blah, and I can't seem to fully get into it. But I'm determined this year to just see it through to the end, and it's gonna happen. Read the book you've owned the longest. Now, I had to go back to all of my book hauls over the years, and the book that seems to be one of the longest that I've had is American Pastoral by Philip Roth. I have read Philip Roth previously in the past and haven't been a big fan, but I am willing to give this one a chance, so we'll see if I like it. Read a book that is not a typical novel. So I figured for this one, I couldn't really think of anything, so I just decided to go with Shirley Jackson. This is a collection of novels and stories from her. This has The Lottery, The Haunting of Hill House, We Have Always Lived in the Castle, and other stories and sketches by her. I've already read The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle, but her short stories and whatnot, I haven't read a lot of those. So this is not a typical novel, so I think that counts. Moving on. Read your longest book. I think this is my longest. It's one of my longest, so it's gonna count. And this is The Swarm by Frank Schatzing. I don't think I pronounced that right. This is a monster of a book. It is a beast. It is, I want to say, probably around 900 pages, maybe more. This is a, I think, end of the world sort of story, and it's supposed to be really good. I've had it for a very long time. I want to pick it up. I love those type of books, so hopefully it's good. The next challenge is to read your shortest book, and for that I have this little guy, and it is The Island of Dr Mora by H.G. Wells. I picked this up a while ago at, I think, like a used book sale, and I just need to read it. I need to read it. I like H.G. Wells. I liked The Time Machine. I liked what I've read by him so far, so I need to read it. Read a sequel. I'm on page 16, and this is the sequel to this book called The Pirate Captain, I think, and it's such a good book, and it's ginormous and huge, and the sequel is even bigger, and this is Nor Gold by Carrie Lynn. This book is huge, not only in page count, but in actual size. This is such a huge book. It's giant. It's literally bigger than like The Sea Wolf, which will be the next book that I show you. It's like double the size. It's just a giant book that I don't think I could take out in public and read because it's so heavy. It's a textbook, basically. So I think I will just be reading it at home, but I have started this guy and I am really liking it. Read a cover by, and that's this next book that I just showed you, The Sea Wolf by Jack London. I actually just read this, so I read this one, hooray, and I loved it. It was a 5-star read for me, a new favorite. It was so good, and this was a complete cover buy for me, to be honest. At least the edition. Like, I saw this edition, beautiful, I needed it in my life, and now I have it, and now I read it, and it's so good. If you haven't read it, you should really read it. Read a book you bought on a friend's recommendation. For this one, I kind of struggled, but then I remembered that I picked up Watership Down by Richard Adams. I remember seeing this actually on the Spine Breakers channel. I think Megan read it or was reading it or something. I just remember her holding up this book at one point, and then I picked it up because it seemed interesting. So Watership Down. I don't know if this is good. I just know that the text is super small and it's pretty long. It looks dense, but I'm gonna give it a shot. Read a book with your favorite color on the cover. Green is my favorite color, so I figured I would pick up Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. This is about a horse, and it's a classic, and that's all I know. I'm not the biggest horse fan. I'm not really into horses, so I hope I like it. I don't know, we'll see. Read a book from your most owned genre. For this one, I figured genre wise, I couldn't really, and then I thought I love books about the ocean and the sea, and we're just gonna call that a genre. So I thought I would pick up 2 Years Before the Mast by Richard Henry Dana Jr. I know this is a classic, and that's all I know. I don't know anything else besides that, but I want to read it. Read a book you've had so long you don't remember what it's about. Honestly, I think I picked up this book without even knowing anything about it regardless, so of course I don't know what it's about, and that is Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. He wrote The Virgin Suicides, which I also don't know anything about, but everyone seems to have read this. I think people enjoy it. I'm not entirely sure. I want to give it a go. Will it be good? Who knows? I don't know. Read a book by one of your favorite authors. This one is going to surprise everyone because I actually still haven't read Meg Generations by Steve Alton, which is the latest book in the Meg series that was released. I think I have some sort of fear in picking this up because the previous book, while I enjoyed it, it was a bit of a letdown for me. And so I'm scared to read this one because I don't know. I love the series so much and I don't want it to be tainted. Read a book by an author you've never read before. For that, I decided to go with 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have since picked up this book. I read it. If you saw my wrap-up that I just posted, you'll know that I wasn't a fan of this book. I found it very hard to follow. I got through it, but it was just a roller coaster of a book to get through because it's just so hard to follow, and I couldn't quite grasp what I was reading. Read your most recently purchased book. So at the time, I made the list at the time, and at the time that I made this list, the book that I had just purchased was Ghost Story by Peter Straub. I found this at a local used bookstore and it is so torn up. Look at this. Look at this thing. But I'm really interested. I love ghost stories, and this is, I believe, an old classic ghost story, so I want to read it. Read your most recently published book. This one, I think, would have to go to Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. I picked this up sometime last year because it just seemed so interesting. It's very The Stand-ish in vibes by Stephen King. That's what I've been hearing, and though I still haven't completed The Stand, I do want to read this. Reviews seem to be mixed, so I am a bit wary in picking this up, but the whole post-apocalyptic end of the world sort of genre is just something that I always seem to enjoy reading. Read your least recently published book. So I had to go back and figure out what was the oldest book that I had, and that was really hard, but I decided to go with a book by Herman Melville, and that is Billy Budd and Other Stories. I loved Moby Dick by Herman Melville. When I read it, it's one of my favorites, so I wanted to read more, and I picked this up forever ago thinking I would have read it by now, and of course I haven't, but it's gonna happen this year. Read a nonfiction book. I decided to go with The Edge of the Sea by Rachel Carson because I still haven't read anything by Rachel Carson. It's ridiculous. So this is my push into doing so. Read a book that was gifted to you. I was gifted Woodswoman by Anne Labastille from Liz Schubert a long time ago now, and I still haven't read this, and that's not okay. So I'm gonna read this, and I know I'm gonna like it. It sounds so interesting. Read a book that you meant to read last year. One that I actually really wanted to read last year but didn't seem to get around to was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, I think is how you say it. This is one that has just piqued my interest recently. A lot of people have been picking it up. I've heard a lot of praise, and it just seems like something that I would like. Randomly choose a book from your TBR. The book that I randomly chose was The Deep by Peter Benchley, and I have thus since picked up and read this book. I wasn't a fan. Read a book that reminds you of someone. For this one, I decided to go with The Watch That Ends the Night by Hugh MacLennan. This one reminds me of Amy from The Dusty Bookshelf, Chippy Cup. It reminds me of her because I think this author is one of her favorites. It's Canadian literature, and I've had this for so long and have yet to pick this up, but I looked at my shelf, saw it, and was like, that reminds me of Amy. I should read it. And so I'm gonna read it this year. Read a book that you bought because of the online book community. This one was kind of difficult, but I decided to go with The Secret History by Donna Tartt, just because without the book community, I don't think I ever would have heard of Donna Tartt before. And The Secret History seems to be one of those books that's just so in the book community everywhere, even in the young adult community on BookTube. People just know The Secret History. It's everywhere. Have someone else choose a book from your shelf for you to read. I don't remember who I had picked this. Oh, my nephew. I had my nephew pick out a book from my shelf, and he picked out TP by Herman Melville, another Herman Melville book to read. So we'll see if this is good. I don't know. It's a beautiful book. I love this edition. So gonna read that, gonna give it a go. Read a predicted 5-star read. This is really hard to do because I don't give out 5 stars that easily. So it was really hard to look at my shelf and figure out what book do I think I would give 5 stars. I ended up going with I Loved You More by Tom Spanbauer. I decided to go with this one for a predicted 5-star read just because I've read a book by Tom Spanbauer before and I fell head over heels in love with that book. It was just so beautiful and consuming and tragic and sad and beautiful and all the things, and I loved it so much. So I figured that if I loved a book by him before, you know, here's to hoping that I would read another 5-star book from him. So this is my predicted 5-star book. I think those are all the challenges. Now for my plans and goals with this, I want to read 2 books from this list a month. That's what I've been doing so far. I've read 3. I'm on my 4th. We're in February, so I'm doing good. Hopefully I can keep this going, and at the end of the year I can give you, or whenever I actually complete this, I can give you a big old wrap up and tell you how I felt about this. But I think it's a really, really great challenge. I will link the challenge video down below, as well as the list to all the challenges and all that great stuff. If you are someone that has a huge TBR pile and you just don't know how you're gonna get through it all, I think this is so helpful because it really pushes you to read more of your older books, and it's fun because, you know, you're checking off the challenges as you do them, and it's kind of like a game. So yeah, that's it for today. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you think of them and blah blah blah. I will see you later. Bye.